Hey guys, Chris here. Tonight we have a story from one of our viewers who was living in Washington State, went camping near Mt St Helens with her boyfriend and some friends, and everything was quiet and peaceful until it turned absolutely terrifying in just a matter of seconds. That's next. Okay, so I am in the cabin tonight. It is windy and rainy and even some snow this weekend. And so I am happy to be cozy tonight. So for tonight's beer, we have one of my favorites, a classic on this channel, the Sierra Nevada Pale Ale. This is a really good beer, handcrafted ale from Chico, California. 1980 they were established. And anytime there's a beer named after a mountain range, my favorite mountain range, I already like it. So there we go. But yes, I've had this before. So yeah, not very amber. It's almost a little brownish, but yeah, it's a pale ale. That is really smooth. It's not even bitter. A little bit bitter at the end, at the finish. But tastes really good. It's like I said, my favorite. And a little hoppy too. Kind of almost a champagne kind of feel in your mouth. Kind of sparkling water kind of thing going on there. But yeah, Sierra Nevada Pale Ale. Cheers. So this story comes to us from one of our viewers. Her name is Stevie. And in 1997, Stevie was 18 years old and she had just moved to Olympia, Washington for a job. And she was living with her boyfriend in an apartment. And in this apartment next door, they met this couple, Rick and Destiny. Now, Rick and Destiny grew up in Washington. They knew the state really well and knew all the great camping places. They were very outdoorsy. And they were about 10 years older than Stevie and her boyfriend. Destiny and Stevie became good friends. And Stevie said Destiny was not intimidated by hardly anything. She was an electrician for the Tacoma Power Company. Grew up in the outdoors with an outdoor family, camping, hiking, pretty much everything. And they became really good friends. And they all decided that summer, 1997, to do a camping trip up to Mt St Helens to the Gifford-Pinchot National Forest and do some remote camping up there, not in a campground. Rick had this spot where they could drive in and there was this meadow that they were going to camp in. So they came off the freeway south of Olympia, Seattle, and worked their way over to Mt St Helens and got on some roads and worked their way back. And there was this dirt road that ended in this, like a cul-de-sac almost. And then off to the left was this small clearing, this meadow, about the size of a Little League baseball field, and completely surrounded by trees. And then next to that was this small creek. So they all walked out into this clearing, this meadow, and decided this would be a great place to set up camp. And so they went back to the trucks, started unloading the gear, walking it out, and just putting their camp together. And there was an old fire pit there that they dug out and were getting ready to use that. And once the tents were set up and the guys were still working, Destiny said to Stevie, "Hey, let's go down to the stream. I want to show you where I've been collecting rocks to make jewelry from." She was really excited to show Stevie some of these rocks in this small stream just next to this meadow. And so they went through the meadow, followed this trail down to the stream. Now the stream was very small, very shallow, and on the opposite side was this thick wall of forest all the way up this creek, this small stream. And this is what Destiny had been doing. She'd been going to this location and other locations collecting rocks to make her jewelry from. And she was really excited to share this with Stevie. So Stevie's like, okay, I'm kind of interested. And so they went down to the stream. They're going, looking at different rocks in the stream. different sizes and the colors and the possibilities of what they could do with the jewelry. And then Destiny says, hey, I want to head upstream. There's some better rocks up there. And Destiny had these big boots on, and she was prepared to walk in this pretty shallow stream. And Stevie said, well, I don't have the right footwear, so I'm just going to stay here. And so Destiny said, okay, I'll be back in 10, maybe 15 minutes. And she went up and around the corner and disappeared. Now Stevie's crouched down in this stream, not too far from the meadow and then the camp, but she's well into the forest, down this stream by herself, and she's in the water just looking at some rocks and kind of throwing them, and on the other side of the creek she hears this really strange sound coming from this, she called it a forest wall. It was just so thick. And she said it was this low, deep gurgling sound. And she didn't identify it as an animal. It was kind of confusing what she was really hearing. But immediately she felt unnerved, very uncomfortable, and very just borderline fear. And so she stands up and she's looking and listening, and she's just got this impulse to just leave, just to get out of there. Again, not knowing what this is, very kind of confusing for her. And Destiny went up the stream and was gone. And so she immediately gets out of the stream bed, finds this trail, works her way back up to this clearing, this meadow, and goes back to camp. And the guys are setting up camp, continuing with the coolers and getting the fire going, and the chairs around the fire, and putting things together, having a good time. And she felt this uneasy feeling because time was going by and Destiny had not shown up yet. It'd been over 20 minutes now. And Stevie's sitting by the campfire, and the guys are all talking and just having a good time, and she's just preoccupied thinking about her friend, good friend, Destiny. And she had this feeling of almost like dread come over her. And soon as she had that feeling, she saw above the campfire and through the smoke, just to the left of the smoke, she saw Destiny coming from this thick, dark forest, and it was dusk. The sun was going down, and she was running straight for the campfire with all she was worth. And as she got closer, Stevie could see this look of exhaustion and fear on her face as she was running up. And the other guys didn't notice this immediately. And as soon as she came within 10 feet of the campfire, they noticed her, and they could see she was running for all she was worth. And they all stood up, and then they ran over to see what in the heck is going on. They all immediately got up, quickly moved around the campfire to help her. She was standing there bent over, and they could immediately see that there was bright red blood running down from her knees, down her shins, and into her socks on both legs. Right away, Stevie was confused, shocked, and scared for what had just happened to her. And they took her 10 to 15 minutes just to have one coherent word come out of her mouth. She was just so distressed and exhausted and had been running for her life. Stevie had this picture in her mind. She remembered seeing her boots were wet. There was this fine dust on her shins and legs, and this blood mixed together, and her shorts were wet. And she had been running through the brush and down the creek. Clearly something was chasing her. Once Destiny could formulate and coherently speak, she told them what happened. She had just left Stevie, went around the bend of the small creek, went up a ways, and she was kneeled down in the stream, picking up stones and looking at them, trying to find the right stone and just kind of throwing them into this stream, crystal clear stream. And she noticed in this water that it started to cloud up with dirt and mud and even leaves. Just coming from above. Something was up above and had moved across the stream or was clearly standing in the stream and creating this disturbance of dirt and mud, and it flowed down and slowly started to cloud this pool that she was kneeling in. Immediately it felt unnerving, and she was concerned, like there's something up above, either standing in the creek or it just crossed the creek, and what was it? When she realized this, she looked upstream and she saw this large, dark mass huddled up in the brush next to the creek above her. And she's staring at this shape, which was huge, and she was confused and then feeling this sense of dread come over her. And then this shape started to move, and then it slowly stood up, almost like it was unfolding, and she could see this shape becoming taller and taller until she saw this large figure shaped like a man standing on 2 feet, staring at her. She's standing there staring at this large, dark, man-like figure, and she's not even trying to figure out what it really is. She's so filled with shock and terror, she just turns and starts running down the stream for everything she's worth. And she's in this stream bed, and she's slipping on the rocks and getting wet and moving through the brush, scraping her legs up. And as she turns her head slightly, as she's running full tilt, she can see and now hear on the bank of the stream, just inside the trees, behind her in her peripheral vision, this shape is following her. It's pacing her as she's running. And she feels like it's jogging where she's running as fast as she possibly can. She continues down the stream. She's feeling like she's going to have a heart attack. She's so filled with terror, trying to get to that spot where she last saw Stevie so she can get out of the stream bed. She looks again, and this thing is right perfectly pacing with her. She can't quite see it, but she can see movement inside the trees, this dark mass moving with her. She said it felt like this thing was taunting her, knowing that it could just jump out at any moment and grab her in the stream. It was almost like it was toying with her, like it was a cat and mouse game, and she was the mouse. Just terrifying. She continued to run, and she got to this location where she entered in the stream. She got out of the bank quickly as she could, looked over her shoulder one last time. She didn't see it, got through the forest onto the trail, and went straight back through the meadow towards camp. As they all listened to this from Destiny, there was this immediate feeling of being watched coming from the forest where Destiny had just run from. It was very dark over there. The sun was setting, and they felt there was this presence that did not want them there, and this feeling of dread came over them. Like something was observing them, and it was hostile towards them. They also noticed, and they talked about this afterwards, that the sounds of the forest were dead silent, except for the crackling of the fire. Right then, Rick says, "We need to go." And they looked at each other, and they nodded, and they were being quiet, and they immediately went and started breaking down camp, taking the tents, dropping the poles, and just pushing the tent down and wadding it up and putting it in the back of the truck. Sleeping bags, just kind of wad them up, throw them in the truck. And as they're walking back and forth, Stevie would glance at the forest, not even wanting to stare directly at it, just having this feeling of being observed and this feeling of dread, just looking in that direction, this vibe coming from the forest. Rick also grabbed his handgun from the truck and was kind of watching over things as they were breaking down camp. It took him about 20 minutes to get camp broken down. and they all felt like whatever this thing was, they had no idea where it was or what it was, but it did not want them there. They finally got everything loaded up after about 20 minutes, and they left. As they were leaving the forest, Stevie always remembered this extremely intense feeling that they all felt as they were trying to escape from this location to get out of there. They got home, and over the following weeks, they all talked about this and what they experienced. And eventually, over time, things kind of got back to normal, and they talked about it less and less. And then Stevie said that over the last 25 years, she's only told a handful of people this story. And now she's telling us this story. And this is what she wrote. I now live in the general region where this happened. All these years later with my husband and daughter, and I still look out at the woods and forested areas and dense trees all the time. I still get spooked a bit when I'm camping with family or out on a walk near the wooded areas. I lost touch with everyone over the years, but I imagine they haven't forgotten either, and I wonder if the whole experience changed their perspective on the unknown and what is out there in those woods. It changed mine forever. And that is from Stevie from Washington. And so now I'm going to play the short interview that we did talking. I had a few questions about this. She's not retelling the story, but she's just answering some of the questions. So. Hi. Is this Stevie?
Oh, yes. Hi, Chris. How are you? I was expecting the call.
Good. Yes. And where do you live?
Right now, Chehalis, Washington. I am actually a stone's throw away from Mt St Helens. On a bright, clear day, coming home, I can see the mountain lit up, bright as could be.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
What do you mean lit up?
It's kind of a constant reminder, you know.
Well, I appreciate you sending in your story for the channel and for people to hear your experience. And this was, I believe, 1997.
Summer of 97. I can't remember which month.
Summer.
To be honest, I don't
That's fine. This summer, probably June or July or something. Yeah, it's summer.
Somewhere in there.
And,
and I watched a couple of your videos talking about that with what you had. I only saw that you had one or two. I didn't ever hear what your second one was, but the first one I did.
Yeah, I'm not sure what your first one that you heard, but I've had a couple of them where they were something outside of my tent, and yeah, one of them was something coming through the forest straight from my tent, and it sounded like a truck driving through the forest without a motor. Just how much it was breaking the forest, and it was so surreal because it was it sounded like half a mile away or something. It was like way off, and it just came straight for my tent.
Wow.
Yeah.
And yet you still go out on your own. I admit, and a lot of the other commenters in the community are always kind of worried about you. Like, we're always kind of like scanning the back area, like. He's gonna jump after a tree or he won't do this anymore.
I know. So, I love nature and I love being out there, and so it's I don't know if I'm a little naive, but I've had a few experiences, so I'm like, okay, well, this is what I need to do. I mean, I can't just sit in the house.
Yeah, true. So, I love it too.
Bigfoot's got to deal with me. I don't care if he's 10 feet tall. He's got to damn well deal with me, by God.
Yeah, I get it. I do. I still love going out. We camp. I'm always aware, though, if the sun goes down. Till this day, that's the odd thing, is till this day, when the sun goes down and we're out in a rural area, out in the middle of nowhere, and I'm always aware. I'm always looking into the woods. I see the woods differently.
In more like detail, that strange sound from the wall of the trees in the forest. I mean, you said it was a gurgling sound, but describe more about that, like how it made you feel and how deep it was, or whatever you experienced.
It was the first thing that sort of broke the moment. As I'm sitting there looking at rocks, we're trying to make this jewelry hobby that we got. We just became really good friends, you know. And anyway, I'm in the middle of the creek. I'm standing in this little creek, and I'm in the middle of it. Wet shoes, wet socks, you know. We both were. And but when she took off upstream, she kind of hiked in the middle of this creek upstream, and I lost sight of her. This wall of forest, you know how it kind of gets darker in the woods faster than it does in the real, you know what I mean? So that kind of absorbed the light. Sorry, my cat. In the stream, I'm looking at things, and I hear this low, deep, and it's like I always feel like a gurgling, guttural noise. Like it was just a very low, quiet, but it got my attention. And I was naive at that. I mean, I grew up in LA, and, you know, and I had only been living there a few months. So it was, I really didn't know what I was hearing. I thought, is this a damn mountain lion? Is this, you know, what is, I didn't know. But it was intimidating, whatever it was. Could have been a cat. Yeah. Could have been. But it was definitely intimidating. This noise was just very low, very guttural, and just very unnerving. It just really didn't feel comfortable. That's when I started to kind of go, you know, I think I've been here long enough. She's on her own, every man for herself, you know what I mean, kind of a thing.
Of course.
So, but she'd just been gone so long, and I was just, you know, and then I hear this noise coming from, you couldn't have seen 10 feet into the woods. I mean, you understand. You're looking through these dense vegetation, and it's getting dark, and to hear that low, you know, it's like a go, kind of like a low, like a motorcycle. Okay, like a motorcycle. You know, when you're standing next to like a Harley, it's like a you know, that bass kind of an engine. Like it was like a low, you know, kind of a weird sound.
Sure.
That's the best and closest I could describe it. Probably not perfect, but that's about the closest thing I could.
Yeah. Well, that
if you were standing next to a running Harley. Yeah.
And you mentioned it was maybe like 10 or so feet away, it felt like?
I would say where I'm standing, and then I'm looking into, like, the woods just sort of begin. As soon as you go off where I'm facing, you go out of that side of the creek bed, and the woods just start. So I'm trying to peer, and you couldn't have seen, I would even say 5 feet in. It looked like a wall of dark woods. Like you couldn't, bushy, and you couldn't see anything. So, but I heard it. You know, and it was enough to get me going. I don't know what I'm hearing, but I am very aware it's not comfortable.
Came running through the forest, and everyone's like kind of chatting around the fireplace, and then all of a sudden you noticed Destiny coming through the forest, and everyone else still talking for a few minutes, and then she shows up, and you said she didn't talk for like 10 or 15 minutes. She
was not able to formulate so much as a sentence. Shaking. Rick gave her a beer.
was she trying to talk?
Just trying to calm herself down so she could. But I mean, she's shaking. Yeah. She's just not making sense. Just trying to get her breathing back to normal.
Sure.
You know, she's a lot of things, but a distance runner, no. So it's just trying to get her to think clearly. Calm her breathing. Rick gave her a beer. It was one of those types of things about 10 to 15 minutes before she started to elaborate on what had happened from the point she left me down in the lower end of that creek bed, and she went up into some dark area. Not dark, it was kind of like dusky dark at that point, but it was clear enough to see. But she had gone up, you know, where she could still see the water, you know, she could still kind of see what she was looking at. But it was about 10 to 15 minutes before she was even, and a beer, before she was even able to really tell us what had happened. But the blood all over her was enough to say something terrible did.
Fortunately, obviously, she was able to find the point where she was able to get out of the creek and directly go right to camp, as opposed to getting lost or something.
You know, had it been me, I agree with you. Had it been me, I would have gotten lost. I'd have probably kept running down the stream. Who knows? You know, what was great, one advantage she had was Destiny was raised in those woods. I mean, she knew them. She was an incredible camper. She was a, you know, outdoorsy hike, you know, she knew the lay of the land. And so she had that advantage, I think, in that dead run. So she just turned and started running down this creek and on, and she'd leap inside any rocks. She just tore her legs up, the cattails, everything,
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. And so when you guys were, after that, you guys were like, okay, we got to check out. We got to get out of here.
Yes. It started to feel wrong.
Yeah. And you kind of like slowly, one at a time, got up and started taking care of business to break down camp and get out of there. But can you describe the something in the forest that was watching, that you felt something watching you as a group and as an individual as you're packing up? And I've really never felt that before, but I'm assuming it's kind of a vulnerable feeling and kind of a very anxious feeling.
Well, the first thing everybody noticed that was strange, once the energy was calming down a little bit, we noticed the woods went quiet. That was the weirdest thing I remember till this day. When the wood goes quiet, that's like wrong. You know what I mean? You should be hearing frogs. You should be hearing life, And when there's just, other than that little fire we had dying down, you could hear a pin drop. There was just nothing. All of a sudden, nothing. Like it was weird. It was just odd, and every one of us kind of felt that way immediately. We knew nobody could hear anything. You know what I mean? Like there was nothing. Yeah. It just stopped. The woods just stopped, and so we kind of were all looking at each other like we all knew, simultaneously something's wrong between what happened to her and some off the wood line where the woods began. I wish I could explain it better. It felt like something was on the other side of that, maybe 10 feet in, and whatever it was scary. We all felt it. Every one of us did. We knew the exact direction. Like every one of us, we were looking in the same area without even communicating that. But we knew something over there was wrong. And so we just sort of, Rick was like, we're calling it. He went to his truck. He pulled out a handgun. That's how bad it affected us all. And we just quickly tore down our camp and left.
Got it.
Got
it. It's pretty incredible. And that emotion that you feel that something was like almost predatory.
Yeah,
exactly. Predator prey kind of
very
thing.
Predatory, very intimidating, very. And we all knew the same direction it was coming from. That was the weird thing. Nobody said, "Look over there." Like it wasn't like that. It was just one by one, heads would turn, and we all sensed it. We all knew, like maybe it's that primal thing, but each of us sensed that. That something in that direction was really wrong. And since my husband and we watch shows on it, and we've taken an interest, kind of a hobby interest now later in life that we're slowing down, but it's interesting. It's got to be something there. Something has to be out there. And so, I'm very aware of the woods though now. It changed. And what's also strange too, I didn't mention, is it changed Destiny too. That was the weird thing. Like for example, I noticed she started drinking more, things like
Destiny?
that. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
And we lost touch over the years. Like I don't know whatever happened to her. And in the beginning after it happened, we talked about it a lot as a group, kind of a private little scary story,
Yeah.
when we barbecue. It was we all went through it, but one by one, people move away, people break up, people go on, and I never knew what happened to any of them. But but I noticed that though towards the end of knowing them, that Destiny was drinking a lot more. Like what was she medicating? I always wondered if that had something to do with it.
Sure, yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. So, okay. Well, I appreciate that, Stevie.
Yeah. Thank you very much for considering the story. I'm glad you found it interesting enough.
All right, you guys. Thank you for watching. Thank you as well, Stevie. And if you guys like what I do, if you like stories about the strange, unexplained, and things that go bump in the night, please like and subscribe. I always appreciate that. And I always appreciate all your comments. You guys are great, and there's a lot more coming up. So thank you as always. We'll see you in the next one. Keep hiking.